They had been warned. Not with threats or bravado, not with desperate pleas or theatrical ultimatums, but with a message so calm it barely registered as resistance. A narrow-band transmission, encoded in standard galactic protocols, translated cleanly into every known command language. It identified the sender as Earth. It acknowledged the incoming fleet. It advised one action: do not proceed. To the Galactic Assembly's observers, the message was almost embarrassing. Earth was a young world by any meaningful measure, its first extrasolar probes barely a few centuries old. Its military footprint was negligible on interstellar scales, its ships slow, its weapons primitive compared to the energy lances and gravity nets fielded by true powers. Earth had no alliances of consequence, no history of conquest, no victories worth recording. By every metric that mattered, humanity was insignificant. The fleet advancing toward the Sol system belonged to a civilization that had erased stars from maps. Their ships had broken fortified empires, enforced compliance across entire sectors, and ended wars before their enemies understood they had begun. They had encountered resistance before, of course. Every species resisted at first, but resistance was a phase, not an outcome. The galaxy had learned that lesson repeatedly. So when the warning was delivered to the fleet's command nexus, it was met with mild curiosity at best. Analysts dissected its phrasing, noting the absence of demands. No territorial claims. No concessions requested. No appeal to mercy or law. Just a statement of fact, followed by a recommendation. Earth advised them to turn back. Some officers laughed. Others dismissed it as cultural misunderstanding, a primitive species misjudging scale and consequence. A few suggested the message might conceal a trap, but even they framed it as caution against nuisance, not danger. The fleet's projections were flawless. Their simulations showed orbital dominance achieved within minutes, planetary suppression within hours. Humanity would be subdued, studied, and absorbed, as so many others had been. The warning was forwarded to higher command anyway, more out of protocol than concern. There, it fared no better. The civilization's leadership had ruled for longer than Earth had possessed radio. They had watched younger species threaten, posture, and crumble. A single inhabited system issuing a warning to a force that spanned light years was not unprecedented. It was almost routine. Still, someone authorized a response. Not a negotiation, just an acknowledgement. A short transmission informed Earth that the fleet's approach was lawful under galactic precedent, and that resistance would be met with proportional force. The message was formal, detached, and final. Earth replied once more. The second message was even shorter. This is your final warning. That phrase circulated briefly among the fleet's crews, stripped of context and weight. Some mocked it openly. Others found it curious that a species so outmatched would choose such language. There was no escalation, no visible mobilization from Earth that sensors could detect. The planet continued its rotations. Satellites maintained their orbits. Civilian traffic did not spike. There was no panic broadcast leaking into space. To the invaders, that was the most telling sign of all. Either humanity had not grasped what was coming, or it had already accepted its fate. As the fleet crossed the heliopause, confidence hardened into certainty. Formation adjustments were made, weapons systems warmed, command hierarchies settled into their familiar rhythm. This was not expected to be a battle, merely an operation. A demonstration of inevitability. The warning was archived. No further messages came from Earth. No protests, no last-minute bargaining, no emotional appeals. Just silence, stretching across the void as the distance closed. For the fleet's commanders, the absence of noise confirmed every assumption they had made. Fear, they believed, always found a voice. Defiance always announced itself. Silence, to them, meant surrender. They did not consider that a species might fall quiet for a different reason entirely. They knew the fleet would ignore them. That certainty was not born of arrogance but of observation, calculation, and experience. For decades, humanity had monitored the galaxy, recording fleet movements, supply chains, communication protocols, and combat doctrines. Every step of the aliens' advance had been predicted, every maneuver anticipated. Earth did not panic, it prepared. Across continents, a quiet coordination unfolded. Governments had long since unified under emergency charters, dissolving bureaucratic noise into a single chain of command. Civilian life continued with a deliberate normality. Streets remained open, factories humdrum, schools in session. The human approach was subtle: maintain ordinary routines while extraordinary measures took shape beneath the surface. The planet itself became a living, breathing fortress, unremarkable to the naked eye yet meticulously aligned for the moment it would matter most. Scientists moved with precision, completing systems that had been in design for generations. They calibrated sensors to detect disturbances light years away. They tuned arrays to manipulate energies the fleet assumed were beyond human capability. None of it was flashy. There were no bright flashes, no public trials of weapons. The work was hidden, quiet, mechanical. Each calculation, each simulation, each assembly was designed to ensure inevitability. Humans were not creating firepower to match the fleet. They were creating inevitability that no fleet could overcome. Military strategists refined timing to fractions of seconds. They were acutely aware that the moment of engagement would not be measured in hours but in instants. Every orbital platform, every satellite, every submerged station was synchronized. Redundancies multiplied in layers that even the most sophisticated alien sensors could not discern. The fleet would see only the calm surface of a planet that appeared ordinary, unaware that every second of their approach had been accounted for. The human mindset was deliberate. There was no hope placed in bluffing, no reliance on luck. The warning was final because humanity had already accepted the calculus, diplomacy had failed, and there would be no negotiation. Victory would not be fought for in open combat but orchestrated in the shadows, executed precisely at the moment the fleet assumed superiority. The humans did not imagine surprise, they ensured it. Communication channels within Earth's defense network were stripped of non-essential chatter. Commands were reduced to essential algorithms. Decisions were automated to minimize delay. Human operators monitored systems, but the design relied on timing more than reaction. The fleet, in its arrogance, would believe its movements unconstrained, unaware that every vector had been anticipated, every vulnerability mapped and neutralized. At the individual level, humans displayed ordinary composure. Civilians walked, worked, and conversed as they always had. Military personnel maintained discipline but gave no outward indication of the extraordinary measures in place. This normalcy was intentional. The aliens were accustomed to panic, to fear, to visible resistance. Humanity offered none of it. Their calm was a subtle signal. The planet was ready, but the readiness was invisible. When final pre-deployment checks were complete, there was still no announcement. Systems hummed silently. Sensors recorded every fluctuation of the approaching fleet. Energy arrays, calibration grids, orbital manipulators, all were poised for activation without a single outward signal. The planet's defenses were a quiet inevitability. No celebrations, no final speeches, no dramatic gestures. Just precision waiting for opportunity. Humans did not seek glory, nor did they expect recognition. They were preparing for a moment measured in seconds, aware that any hesitation could be catastrophic. Yet there was confidence, rooted not in emotion but in foresight, in coordination, and in understanding the weaknesses of a civilization that had never encountered patience and calculation as weapons. The fleet would arrive believing in its dominance, only to encounter the consequence of underestimating a species that understood timing, precision, and inevitability better than any opponent it had ever faced. The fleet emerged from the darkness between stars, vast beyond comprehension, spanning kilometers in width, their hulls gleaming with the authority of eons. Each ship moved with deliberate precision, a chorus of engineered perfection, synchronized beyond what any human mind could fully grasp. The hum of their engines reached Earth only as faint distortions in electromagnetic readings, but the data made their scale undeniable. This was not a fleet approaching cautiously. This was an empire asserting inevitability. From the bridge of the lead vessel, officers monitored every system, confident in their supremacy. They had done this before, worlds reduced to ash, civilizations subjugated, rebellions ended before they began. The sensors reported nothing unexpected. The planet's defenses were negligible, the orbital traffic sparse. They detected no weapons capable of challenging them. The humans, according to all measures, were unarmed, unprepared, and unaware of the forces converging above them. Communication between command stations flowed in flawless precision. Subordinates updated superiors with every orbital correction, every trajectory adjustment. The formation adjusted automatically, calculating gravitational influences, solar radiation pressure, and even the subtle electromagnetic distortions of the planet's magnetosphere. The fleet's command had prepared for every known variable. There was no reason to anticipate failure. Observers on the ships speculated on the humans, noting the silence of the transmissions. After the final warning, Earth had emitted nothing. No energy spikes, no sudden deployments, no signals indicating panic or desperation. It was as if the planet accepted its fate without question. To the fleet's personnel, this silence confirmed what they already believed: the humans understood their place. Sensors scanned for anomalies. Nothing significant appeared. Satellite networks, civilian stations, even the ionosphere showed only predictable patterns. There were no hidden fleets, no cloaked weapons, no warning systems beyond what the fleet already detected. Every calculation confirmed the conclusion the commanders had drawn weeks ago: the planet was unprepared, and its population could be subdued within hours. The fleet itself was a testament to decades, even centuries, of engineering. Each ship's energy arrays, propulsion systems, and weapon banks had been tested under conditions humans could not replicate. Tactical simulations conducted light years away predicted success with near certainty. Confidence had hardened into expectation. Any hesitation was considered inefficient, a flaw to be corrected in protocol rather than a reflection of reality. From Earth, the world appeared calm. Daily routines persisted. Satellites traced their orbits without deviation. Observers on the planet, if they existed, were invisible against the planetary surface. The humans offered nothing to betray their intent. The fleet's sensors picked up no anomalies, no preparatory movements. For every measure, every metric, the situation confirmed what the alien commanders had assumed from the start. As the fleet closed on the Sol system, the sun glinted across their hulls, a cold reminder of the scale of what humanity faced. No signals interrupted their advance, no cosmic events altered their trajectory. The bridge crews relaxed in their dominance, scanning for threats that did not exist, confident that the operation would unfold as designed. One last transmission was dispatched toward Earth, a formality more than necessity. It reiterated the fleet's intentions, confirmed the legality of their operation, and informed the planet that compliance was expected. The message was devoid of emotion, protocol-driven, final. Beyond this, there was silence. The humans did not respond. As the final kilometers closed, the fleet maintained formation, engines humming, weapons primed, command structures aligned. They moved as one, a vast organism of metal and energy, unchallenged and absolute. They believed the moment of victory had arrived, and in every calculation, in every simulation, that belief was validated. The humans, unremarkable and silent, waited beneath the shadow of inevitability, unseen and underestimated, while the galaxy's most formidable force approached with full confidence in its supremacy. The first anomaly appeared without warning, subtle enough that the fleet's automated systems almost ignored it. Sensors registered a fluctuation in the energy field surrounding the lead ship, a distortion so slight it could have been dismissed as cosmic interference. Commanders noted it, curious but unconcerned, confident in their superior calibration and centuries of experience. By the time they realized it was intentional, it was already too late. Within moments, the distortions escalated. Systems designed to withstand extremes began failing in impossible sequences. Shields collapsed in seconds, energy conduits overloaded, propulsion arrays misfired. Every defensive protocol the fleet had perfected over millennia faltered simultaneously, as though the universe itself had tilted against them. Confusion spread across command channels. redundancy protocols activated only to find backups compromised before they could stabilize the core systems. The fleet attempted to regroup. Subcommanders issued orders, rerouted power, initiated emergency shutdowns, and recalibrated weapon systems. Responses cascaded through the ships, but each action triggered further failures. Navigation systems locked, communications scrambled, and automated defenses engaged against phantom targets generated by manipulated sensors. The carefully orchestrated formation collapsed, vessels drifting helplessly, engines stuttering in unpredictable bursts. On-board officers stared at displays they could not interpret, at readouts that contradicted the laws of physics they had relied upon for centuries. What they believed was impossible had already occurred. Panic, unfamiliar and dangerous, spread as authority broke down. Protocols designed for extreme contingencies proved irrelevant. Calculations failed, models became meaningless, and the once perfect fleet found itself paralyzed by precision it could not comprehend. In less than a minute, the lead vessels were neutralized. Entire wings followed the same pattern, cascading through the fleet in sequence too rapid for reaction. Energy weapons discharged erratically, detonating harmlessly or feeding back into systems that were already compromised. Gravity stabilizers failed, leaving ships adrift, unable to maneuver. Command nodes went dark as artificial intelligences shut down under impossible stress, leaving crews disoriented and isolated. From Earth, the process unfolded in deliberate control. Humans observed through arrays and sensors, confirming every anomaly, every failure, without intervention beyond initiating the precise sequence. No celebration, no exclamation, only meticulous verification. The fleet's destruction was engineered to occur within seconds, yet every measure was calculated to preserve the inevitability, ensuring no unintended consequences. Alien commanders attempted to send distress signals, but communications scrambled, routed through corrupted channels that returned nothing but false echoes. They tried to coordinate countermeasures, but predictive algorithms had been preempted, rendering all maneuvers ineffective. Ships collided with one another, not violently, but irreversibly, the result of failed navigation and disabled thrust systems. Entire squadrons drifted inert, systems offline, while human sensors silently recorded the perfection of the outcome. What remained of the fleet, if anything, was unrecognizable. Hulls remained, but empty, silent, and adrift. Energy signatures were reduced to near zero, weapon banks inactive. The force that had crossed light years with absolute confidence in its supremacy had been neutralized before it had a chance to act. The galaxy, accustomed to swift and violent enforcement, experienced a momentary disbelief as records updated with impossible results. The humans did not gloat. They did not celebrate. They acknowledged the completion of the operation as any engineer might verify a system, precise, calm, and unflinching. The fleet, once a symbol of unmatched power, had vanished in seconds. Its disappearance was total, surgical, and irreversible. Humanity had delivered a lesson not in rage or violence, but in inevitability. The warning had been real. The outcome had been unavoidable. The galaxy had misjudged humanity, and for the first time, it would reconsider the meaning of power. Silence followed the obliteration. Across light years, sensors and observers recorded the sudden absence of the fleet, its disappearance creating a shockwave not of energy, but of disbelief. Command centers of other civilizations paused, protocols interrupted, archives re-evaluated. The galaxy had not witnessed such a precise, complete neutralization in its entire recorded history. Reports circulated of entire fleets vanishing without a trace, of civilizations reconsidering every assumption they had held about humans. On Earth, life continued with the same quiet precision it always had. There was no celebration, no announcement, no triumph broadcast to the stars. The planet had fulfilled its purpose and returned to normalcy, as if nothing had occurred beyond the orbit of its sun. Humans went about their routines, monitoring the systems, verifying results, confirming that every calculation had held true, every contingency accounted for. Their work was complete, and yet their vigilance remained constant. Galactic observers began to document humanity differently. Formerly dismissed as inconsequential, Earth was now a cautionary example. Strategists debated how a species so small and unassuming could orchestrate such a flawless operation. Scholars analyzed signals and energy readings, attempting to reconstruct the methodology, but the precision, timing, and invisibility of the mechanisms defied replication. Humanity had operated in a domain the galaxy had never understood, preparation executed to perfection, without spectacle, without fear. The surviving fragments of the fleet, or what remained of its records, were analyzed and found inadequate. No lessons were complete, no explanations fully formed. Command structures had collapsed before recovery protocols could engage. The galaxy realized that brute force, history's usual determinant, was irrelevant when opposed by a species capable of anticipating every outcome, exploiting every blind spot, and executing impossibilities without drama. Humanity, though suddenly acknowledged, made no effort to leverage the recognition. They did not seek empire or dominion. There were no declarations, no demands, no proclamations of superiority. The planet communicated only one final, deliberate message to the wider galaxy, neutral in tone, devoid of emotion or rhetoric, stating the simple fact: respect the boundaries of others, or consequences will be unavoidable. It was concise, cold, and absolute, carrying the weight of inevitability rather than threat. Civilizations across nearby systems recalibrated their policies. Military doctrines, long based on overwhelming force, were reconsidered. Strategic assumptions about speed, numbers, and firepower were questioned. Planners began to account for humans in every calculation, not as a curiosity, but as a factor whose capabilities could no longer be estimated by appearances. The galaxy had been reminded, decisively, that a species underestimated is a species dangerous beyond expectation. Earth remained unchanged on the surface. Oceans lapped against familiar coastlines, winds moved through forests and plains, cities hummed with ordinary life. Beneath this continuity lay the knowledge of accomplishment, a quiet mastery over forces that had once seemed untouchable. Humanity did not flaunt its achievement. The lesson had been delivered and absorbed by the galaxy, whether willingly or not. In time, the records of the vanished fleet became a cautionary tale. Archives noted the precision, the speed, the inevitability. Students of galactic history would study it, strategists would fear it, and yet humans themselves remained observers, calm and measured, aware that their work was not over. Vigilance and preparation were their true legacy, not conquest. The galaxy would remember, eventually, that power is not measured solely by fleets or weaponry. It is measured by foresight, coordination, and the resolve to act decisively when the moment demands. Humanity had demonstrated all three in a single, unflinching act. The message was clear, and it would echo across systems: underestimate us at your own peril, for we do not seek to dominate, only to ensure survival, and survival is absolute.